And one of those people is Jonathan Williams. He is the president for the American Legislative Exchange Council. He joins us live right now on WGY Mornings. Morning, Jonathan.
Good morning and happy tax day, if you can call it that.
No, it is tax day. I wouldn't say happy tax day is the way to put that. Also not happy economic outlook day. Your study determined that New York is indeed dead last. How did you arrive at this? What are the key factors that put us dead last?
Well, there's a lot. As you know, you've lived it. This is the 17th edition of Rich States, Poor States, our annual report where we do rank all 50 states and put this together with Reagan economist Art Laffer and other economists. And, we ranked New York 50th for 15 out of the last 17 years of this study. And there'd be no surprise to any of your listeners who, once again, are living this day in, day out. But some of the highest taxes in America, of course, when you look at income taxes, those filing deadlines right around the corner, property taxes. We also look at regulation and labor policy because we look at the 15 things that we think matter the most for economic growth across states. And just as importantly, as you know, there's lots of different organizations that rank the states, and that's a helpful tool, but not all of them focus on things that policymakers in Albany and the other 49 state capitals actually control. So we look at the things that are tangibly in control of state legislators and policies that we think really matter for growth from state to state.
So you know how this works, Jonathan. You come out with your report and then the left and people in Albany say, oh, you're a naysayer. You're a right-wing nut. You're just an extremist. At some point, though, the governor does say she's data-driven, and your data says we are the worst state in the union to do business. You can't dismiss that 15 out of 17 years, can you?
Well, you would hope not. At least the smart policymakers won't dismiss it because, we really stand for free markets and limited government and federalism. We don't hide from that. But on the other hand, everything we do in this report is objective and based directly on data from government reports and tax rates and other things we pull directly from government sources. And so we select the data because we know based on the academics they matter. And, the results are where they are. We don't have a dog in the fight. There's a lot of competition at the top and the bottom. And the fact that you're able to be the worst economic outlook and beating out states like California and Illinois and New Jersey really ought to be concerning. And, the proof is in the pudding, as we always like to say in our report, is just don't take our word for it. Where are Americans going and where are they leaving? One of the key takeaways from Rich States, Poor States is just how much Americans continue to vote with their feet away from states that don't provide the right kind of economic outlook and lack economic opportunity. And of course, New York is one of the worst there, losing nearly 2 million New Yorkers over the last decade alone, going to one of the other 49 states.
You had a quote on this when you released the report, which I think is great, also awful, because it's such a gut punch. And we know it because we live it every day. But your quote was, New York is a perfect example of a state that just can't get out of its own way thanks to failed policies. And what gets me about this, Jonathan, is everybody knows it. They even know it. And yet they're not doing anything about it, even though every signal is screaming red, flashing lights at them. And yet we do this now for the 15th year out of 17. And next year will be the 16th out of 18, I predict. And then it'll be the 17th out of 19 because we don't change.
Well, and your point is a good one in that, what's the first response out of Albany and other capitals that don't like their ranking is they like to shoot the messenger, and we're not the only group out there that is showing New York heading in a horrible direction. And of course, all the businesses that have left and picked up and moved to other states and taken their charitable contributions and individuals moving their families because they didn't have opportunity or got taxed out of their home because of property tax. They know it better than any study ever show, but we're not the only ones out there. And I would like to say, too, the states at the bottom of our ranking generally know they have a problem. And so what do? They go the cronyism route, which is instead of cutting taxes for everybody, they, of course, like Albany's done for far too long, start picking winners and losers and handing out taxpayer money to prop up one business versus another or one industry versus another or try to chase businesses from out of state. But, of course, they all at the same time, well, they might be getting a gain here or a win here. They're losing majorly because they haven't tended the overall economic competitiveness.
Jonathan Williams joins us. He's the president of the American Legislative Exchange Council, which put out their rich states, poor states. New York comes in dead last in terms of economic outlook of the 50 states. I saw you talking about this on Fox Business over the weekend. CNN or MSNBC reach out to have you on yet?
No, and the lines are open. We'd love to go on any show that would like to discuss this data.
The reason why I asked that is this isn't a partisan thing. I mean, you were on Fox. Okay, so people go, oh, right-wing extremists. No. Why wouldn't MSNBC, which they are right in New Jersey, and they know full well the ramifications of what New York's policies have been, why wouldn't they want to have you on? Why wouldn't CNN want to know which states are good for business, which states aren't good for, like, this is news. Why wouldn't they want to discuss it?
Well, I mean, it's a very valid question, right? I mean, you tend to think that, hey, it may not just fit the narrative they'd like to continue to talk about, and they'd like to say that certain policies or weather or other things matter than others. But I mean, it's really difficult to ignore now that 17 years in a row there's an incredible track record between the states that rank well in rich states, poor states. Some of the fastest growing in America, like Texas and Florida and Utah, Arizona. And some of the slowest growing states in America continue to be at the bottom end of the ranking. And so you'd hope that here in America, we'd have that open dialogue across all ideological pieces of the spectrum. But some, I think, would just ignore the inconvenient truth, so to speak.
So we know with the budget deal fast approaching, we're told that there's almost a wink. They've got the budget done for the state this year. We know in it, there's not a lot for business. There's some tax breaks if you want to buy security cameras to prevent retail theft. But there's nothing about punishing the people that are doing the retail theft. It doesn't look like, for starters. There's nothing about changing bail reform in any way. There's nothing in there that business owners would tell them this is what we need. If they came to you, Jonathan, and they never would, but if they did and they said, all right, we're going to let you one thing, you can change one thing in New York right now, what would that thing be?
But there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there. But I mean, I think you can't be the worst when it comes to the highest tax state in the country, right? And working your way to dig out from under that hole. I mean, you can have high taxes and high services and be somewhat functional in other states, but to have the absolute highest taxes in America, I mean, that is just a killer right off the bat for many businesses. They won't even consider coming to New York for that reason alone.
So you're coming to Albany today. I know some of the Republicans in the Assembly and the Senate are going to be with you. I know our friend Assemblyman Smollin's going to be there, for example. Where are you going to be? What time? And can people come be part of this thing?
Yeah, we're going to be there in the afternoon, starting at about 1:30 there at the Capitol. Assemblyman Smollin's a great American, is hosting us. We're going to have different small business groups and legislators there, and would love to see folks at the Capitol and come and talk about what it might take to turn around New York and at least get out of 50th place.
It's just, can you imagine that? Imagine if we did our 49th last year. We're like, all right, we've improved. I mean, it's just so sad. And I've used this quote before, Jonathan, but people don't know a lot about President McKinley. He wasn't president for that long, as you know. But his quote when he ran for president was, the business of government ought to be business. Why New Yorkers don't understand that is beyond me. But he got it 130 some odd years ago. Somehow we've lost our way since then.
Well, he was on to something, right? I mean, between that and just government getting out of the way of individuals as well. I mean, wouldn't that be a novel concept in a place like New York?
Sure would. Jonathan Williams, I appreciate what you do, even if they're not listening. All you can do is give them the data, whether they use it for good or not. That's on them. And of course they don't. But we appreciate you taking some time this morning to join us.
Well, thanks for having me. And we'll keep bringing the data. Hopefully there's hope for every state.